There is a great secret hidden in plain sight, yet only a few dare to embrace it. The world you see before you is not fixed, it is fluid, shaped and molded by the assumptions you hold. If you wish to manifest your desires, you must first believe in them as if they have already come to pass. This is the key to creation. It is not enough to hope, to wish, or to wait for proof. You must assume completely and without hesitation that what you desire is already yours. Do not look to the outside world for confirmation. The outer world is but a reflection of the inner. If you seek validation from the senses, you are living backward, allowing what is seen to dictate what is possible. Instead, turn within. Feel the reality of your desire so completely that the world has no choice but to conform. This is how manifestation unfolds. This is how you bring the unseen into the seen. Everything you have ever experienced began in the realm of imagination. The home you live in, the relationships you cherish, even the obstacles you face, they were all first conceived in the mind. If you wish to change your reality, you must begin by changing the images you hold within. Live in the assumption that your desire is already a fact. Let it be more real to you than the circumstances that appear before you. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest who you are. If you see yourself as lacking, struggling, or waiting, then life will reflect those assumptions back to you. But if you assume, without doubt, that you already are the person who possesses what you seek, then reality must bend to match that conviction. The world does not operate independently of you. It moves according to the consciousness you hold. The biggest obstacle to belief is the mind's insistence on knowing how a thing will come to pass. This is the trap of the senses, the illusion that conditions control outcomes. But the true creative force does not concern itself with details. It simply knows that what is felt as real must materialize. Stop asking when and how. Those questions only strengthen doubt. Instead, trust that the bridge of incidents will unfold in perfect order. Belief is not a matter of mere words or repeated affirmations. It is a state of being. To believe before it happens means to dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you wake, carry this feeling. When you move through your day, let it saturate every thought. Make no room for contradiction. The moment you truly feel it to be real, the unseen forces of creation begin their work. There is no waiting in manifestation. There is only being. Do not seek evidence. Be the evidence. Walk, talk, and think as the person who already has what they desire. Let every action flow from this new identity. If you wish to be abundant, do not lament over lack. If you wish for love, do not dwell in loneliness. You must embody the reality you wish to see. Doubt is the destroyer of manifestation. It sneaks in when results seem delayed, whispering that reality is unchanging. But those who persist, who refuse to waver, are the ones who see miracles unfold. The world is a shadow, always following the form of your dominant assumption. Persist in the unseen, and the seen will align in time. All external change is first an internal shift. The world does not move independently of you. It is moved by you. If you wish to change your circumstances, you must first change the state from which you operate. Raise your awareness. Choose thoughts that reflect your desired state. When your consciousness aligns with your wish fulfilled, the outer world must obey. Manifestation is not about effort, struggle, or endless seeking. It is about knowing, a quiet certainty that what you hold within is already yours. There is no need to chase, for that which you desire is already a reality in consciousness. Assume it, trust it, live in it, and watch as the world reshapes itself to reflect the truth you have dared to believe. The world you experience is not something happening to you, it is something happening through you. Every event, every circumstance, every encounter is the result of the images you persistently hold in your mind. Nothing comes into existence without first being imagined. Look around you, the buildings that stand, the technology that advances, the relationships that form. Each was once a mere thought, a passing vision in the mind of someone who dared to see beyond what their senses told them was real. You are not a passive observer in this world. You are the creator. You hold within you the power to shape your reality as deliberately as an artist molds clay. But to do so, you must first recognize the law upon which all creation rests. That which you vividly imagine, consistently dwell upon, and emotionally accept as true must externalize in your world. There is no exception to this. The outer world is simply the mirror, the reflection of the images you entertain within. Change the image, and the reflection must change as well. You may look at your current reality and say, but this is what is real. These are the facts. And yet what you call reality is only a snapshot of your past assumptions, a crystallization of thoughts and feelings you once entertained. If you wish to change what you see, you must shift your attention away from what is and focus entirely on what you wish to be. This is the great secret of manifestation. Reality is not something fixed, but something fluid, moving in response to the unseen activity of your mind. It is not enough to simply wish for change. Wishing implies separation. It acknowledges lack. Desire in its ordinary form only confirms that what you seek is absent. But imagination, when rightly used, does not operate from the position of longing. It operates from the position of already having. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the moment you make it real within, you have set a cause into motion that cannot be undone. It must unfold, for it is the law of consciousness. There is no force outside of you determining your fate. The only limitations you experience are those you accept as true. If you believe that something is impossible, it will be impossible for you. Not because the world is against you, but because the world can only reflect what you assume to be real. The only requirement for manifestation is belief. Belief so firm that it does not waver in the face of appearances. And belief is nothing more than sustained imagination. To manifest deliberately, begin with the end in mind. Do not concern yourself with how it will come to pass. The how is not your responsibility. The only task before you is to enter the state of already having. If you wish to experience wealth, do not imagine striving for it. Imagine the ease and security of already possessing it. If you seek love, do not imagine longing. Imagine the warmth of already being cherished. The moment you do this sincerely, the moment you lose yourself in the reality of that assumption, you have taken the first and most crucial step toward its realization. There is no power greater than the power of imagination. It is the force that has shaped civilizations, that has brought forth every advancement, every revolution, every transformation known to humankind. And yet, it is a power that most take for granted, using it unconsciously to recreate the same patterns, the same struggles, the same limitations. But you are being called to use it deliberately, to step beyond what appears to be and embrace what can be. If you wish to test this truth, do so now. Close your eyes and imagine a simple scene, one that implies your wish is already fulfilled. It does not need to be extravagant. It only needs to feel real. Perhaps it is a friend congratulating you, a bank statement showing the amount you desire, the feeling of a loved one's embrace. See it clearly, hear the words, feel the texture of it, the atmosphere, and most importantly, feel the joy, the relief, the naturalness of it already being yours. If you can do this even for a moment, you have touched the creative power within you. You have planted a seed, and if you do not uproot it with doubt, it must grow. Do not wait for evidence before you believe. Believe, and the evidence will follow. The world will reshape itself to match the conviction you hold within. People will move, circumstances will shift, opportunities will arise, all in alignment with the state of consciousness you have assumed. But it all begins with imagination. It begins with your willingness to see beyond what is and embrace what can be. If you can master this, you can master life itself. Nothing will be withheld from you. You will come to see that the only thing ever standing between you and your desires was the illusion of separation. Imagination dissolves that illusion. It brings what was once unseen into full expression. And when you understand that, you will no longer question how things will happen. You will know that they are already done. The world does not operate independently of you. Everything you experience, every event, every circumstance, every encounter, is not something happening to you, but something happening through you. The life you are living right now is nothing more than a reflection of the assumptions you have accepted as true. You do not manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. The outer world is always a direct expression of your inner world, and to change anything in your life, you must first change the assumptions from which you operate. Assumption is not wishful thinking. It is not idle daydreaming or hoping for a better future. Assumption is the conscious act of accepting something as fact before there is physical evidence of it. It is knowing beyond all doubt that what you desire is already yours. The moment you assume a thing to be true, it begins to externalize in your world. This is the law upon which all creation rests, the unseen force that governs the unfolding of your reality. If you assume lack, struggle, or limitation, then life will reflect that back to you. If you assume abundance, success, and fulfillment, then the world will align itself accordingly. It does not matter what your current conditions appear to be. The only thing that matters is the state of consciousness you persist in. The world must mirror your dominant assumptions, for it has no reality of its own apart from the meaning you give it. To test this law, do not look to the outside world for validation. The moment you seek proof, you are affirming doubt. True assumption does not wait for evidence. It creates the evidence. The secret is to live from the state of already having. Do not think of your desire as something far off in the future. The future is only an extension of your present state of mind. If you continue to see your desire as something yet to come, you're only reinforcing its absence. Instead, assume that it is already done. Feel it, dwell in it, and let it become more real to you than anything your senses suggest. You do not need to force this reality into being. You only need to accept it. The law is always working, whether you acknowledge it or not. The question is not whether it will work for you, but whether you are willing to discipline your mind to remain faithful to your assumption. The world is full of people who shift from one state to another, never holding firm to an idea long enough for it to materialize. They assume wealth one day and doubt it the next. They assume love in one moment and question it in the next. And so their world reflects this inconsistency. The key is to persist, to assume so completely that there is no room for contradiction. If you wish to experience transformation, you must embody it now. Walk as though you are already the person you desire to be. Think from that state, speak from that state, act from that state. The moment you do, everything around you begins to reorganize itself to match that assumption. People will move, circumstances will shift, and opportunities will present themselves, not because you have forced them to, but because you have assumed the reality that makes them inevitable. This is not mere theory. It is the way all things come into existence. Every great achievement, every invention, every breakthrough has come from someone who first assumed it to be possible. They did not wait for proof. They became the proof. They moved through life as though their vision was already reality, and by doing so, they caused the world to conform. This is the same power you hold within you. There is no difference between you and the greatest minds in history, except perhaps one thing. They understood the law and applied it deliberately. You may wonder, how can I maintain my assumption when the world presents me with contrary evidence? The answer is simple: ignore it. The outer world is nothing more than a reflection of past assumptions. If you allow it to dictate what you believe, You will forever be trapped in a cycle of recreating the same experiences. But if you learn to disregard appearances and hold firm to your assumption, the world will have no choice but to shift. This is not a battle of willpower. It is not about forcing yourself to believe something you do not truly accept. It is about immersing yourself so fully in the reality of your assumption that there is no room for doubt. When you assume a thing to be true with conviction, you will find that the world begins to adjust itself in ways that seem almost magical. People will say it was coincidence, they will call it luck, but you will know the truth, that it was nothing more than the law of assumption in action. There is no waiting in manifestation. The moment you assume a thing to be real, it is real. It may not yet be visible to the senses, but that does not mean it is not already in motion. Your assumption sets forces into action that are beyond what the conscious mind can perceive. The bridge of incidents will unfold in ways that are natural and effortless, leading you inevitably to the fulfillment of your desire. Dare to assume. Dare to believe in what the world calls impossible. Know that the only limits you face are those you have accepted in your own mind. If you can change your assumptions, you can change your life. Nothing is out of reach. Nothing is too big or too small. The only requirement is that you assume, persist, and allow the world to align itself accordingly. To bring forth anything in this world, you must first bring it forth in consciousness. Everything you experience is the direct outpicturing of your inner state. The unseen becomes seen, the formless takes form, and the invisible becomes visible the moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feeling is the secret, the bridge between what is imagined and what is realized. Without feeling, all thought remains dormant. Thought alone does not create, feeling does. You may wish for wealth, love, or success, but if you do not feel yourself as already possessing these things, they will remain distant from you. The law does not respond to idle wishes or vague hopes. It responds to the state of being you occupy. The world is your mirror, reflecting not your desires, but your deeply held assumptions. If you continue to see yourself as someone who lacks, the world will show you lack. If you persist in the feeling of already being wealthy, successful, or loved, then the world must conform to that assumption. The key is to embody the state of fulfillment before any physical evidence appears. This is the great misunderstanding of the world. People believe that circumstances dictate feelings. They wait for their desires to manifest before they allow themselves to feel the joy, the confidence, and the satisfaction that comes with them. But this is reversing the order of creation. Circumstances are not the cause. They are the effect. Feeling precedes form. You must feel the reality of your desire now, not at some future date. The future is only a projection of your present state. If you continue to think of your desire as something yet to come, you are keeping it at a distance. You must move beyond thinking of it and begin thinking from it. To think from the end is to assume the mental position of already having what you seek. It is to abandon the idea of wanting and step into the certainty of having. Wanting implies separation. If you want something, you are affirming that you do not yet have it. But if you feel yourself as already in possession of it, there is no separation. The world must reflect back to you what you persist in feeling. This is not a passive exercise. You must deliberately cultivate the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in a state of having what you desire. Do not merely see it, feel it. If your desire is wealth, feel the security and freedom that wealth brings. If your desire is love, feel the warmth and companionship of already being deeply loved. If your desire is success, feel the confidence and recognition of already being successful. The more vividly you can generate the feeling, the more real it becomes within you. And as it becomes real within, it must become real without. Doubt is the greatest enemy of manifestation. The moment you allow yourself to question whether your assumption is true, you have stepped out of the state of fulfillment and back into the state of lack. The world will always present appearances that challenge your belief. For the physical realm is nothing more than the shadow of past assumptions. But shadows have no power. They are merely remnants of previous states of consciousness. To be swayed by appearances is to give power to an illusion. You must remain steadfast in your inner knowing, unshaken by what the senses report. You do not need to concern yourself with how your desire will manifest. The logical mind is limited, and it cannot comprehend the infinite intelligence that orchestrates creation. The path from assumption to realization is not yours to determine. All you must do is maintain the feeling of already having. The means will unfold in ways beyond what you can foresee. The mind seeks to control, but the law operates on faith, not control. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. It is the inner conviction that what is assumed is already fact. And faith is not something to be passively held. It is something to be actively lived. Every action you take, every thought you entertain, every word you speak must align with your assumption. If you have assumed wealth, you must no longer think or speak as one who lacks. If you have assumed love, you must no longer carry yourself as one who is alone. Live now as the person you desire to be, and the world will reshape itself around that assumption. The power of feeling cannot be overstated. It is the force that moves mountains, the energy that gives life to form. The reason so many fail to manifest their desires is that they treat feeling as an afterthought rather than the foundation of creation. They intellectualize, they analyze, they seek methods and techniques, but they do not feel. And so they remain stuck in a cycle of endless seeking, never realizing that all they seek is already within them, waiting to be felt into existence. This is the art of conscious creation. It requires discipline, for the mind will seek to return to old patterns of doubt and fear. But the disciplined mind knows that these are nothing more than echoes of past assumptions. They have no reality except the reality you give them. Every moment, you have the choice to dwell in the state of fulfillment or the state of lack. Every moment, you are either accepting your desire as reality or denying it. Dare to feel now what the world tells you is impossible. Dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled in the face of all contrary evidence. The world cannot resist a consciousness that is unwavering in its assumption. The moment you fully accept the feeling of your desire as fact, the entire universe bends to make it so. The law is absolute and it never fails. If you will only feel now, you will see tomorrow. To manifest the life you desire, you must free yourself from the tyranny of the senses, the five senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell are the instruments through which the world presents its illusions. They report only the past, for all that is visible is nothing more than the materialization of old beliefs. If you look at your present circumstances and accept them as truth, you are accepting the past as your reality and allowing it to dictate your future. But if you wish to transform your world, you must learn to deny the evidence of the senses and accept only the truth of your imagination. Creation is not a matter of responding to what is seen, but of persisting in what is unseen until it takes form. The senses will tell you that you are poor, that you are alone, that you are weak. But these are only reflections of previous states of consciousness. They have no power except the power you give them. The world does not shape your mind shapes the world. If you continue to react to appearances, you are reinforcing them, giving them life and ensuring their continuation. But if you refuse to be moved by what the senses report and instead hold firm to the assumption of your desire to fulfill, reality must bend to conform to that assumption. Your only task is to persist in your assumption. The moment you accept your new state as fact, the outer world begins to shift to reflect it. But the world moves according to its own time. A seed planted in the soil does not bear fruit overnight. There is a period of gestation, an unfolding that happens beyond the sight of the observer. And yet, because you do not see immediate results, the mind begins to doubt. It looks again to the senses for confirmation, and when it finds none, It abandons the assumption and returns to the old state. This is why so many fail. They waver between faith and doubt, between belief and disbelief. To ignore the senses is to develop an inner vision, one that does not rely on physical evidence, but on the certainty of imagination. Close your eyes and see yourself as the person you wish to be. Do not merely observe it as a distant possibility. Step into it, embody it, feel it as real. Let every fiber of your being be saturated with the knowing that it is already done. When the senses contradict this knowing, pay them no mind. When circumstances suggest that nothing is changing, persist in your inner conviction. The outer world is always the last to reflect the inner change, but it must reflect it. The law is precise and unfailing. If you assume the feeling of already having your desire and persist in that assumption, it must externalize itself in the world. The only thing that can delay its manifestation is your wavering faith. If you allow appearances to dictate your belief, you are giving power to the very conditions you seek to change. But if you hold steadfast to your inner vision, unmoved by what the senses report, you are exercising the highest form of faith, the faith that does not require evidence, for it knows that imagination is the only reality. The mind, conditioned by years of sensory reliance, will resist. It will look for proof. It will seek validation. It will demand signs. But you must train yourself to see beyond appearances. You must remind yourself daily that what is seen is temporary and what is felt within is eternal. Walk through the world with the quiet confidence that your assumption is already fact. Let your actions, your words, your demeanor reflect this knowing. The world will attempt to test you, to shake your conviction, but if you remain unshaken, you will witness the inevitable unfolding of your assumption into form. The greatest mistake is to wait for confirmation before believing. The senses will never give you confirmation in advance. You must give yourself that confirmation through unwavering assumption. If you seek wealth, do not look to your bank account to determine your state of mind. If you seek love, do not look to your current relationships to dictate your feelings. If you seek health, do not look to the body to affirm your condition. Instead, assume the state you desire as already yours and live from that state with complete certainty. Those who understand this law live in a world apart from others. They are not swayed by appearances, nor do they allow temporary setbacks to disturb their inner peace. They know that the outer world is merely the shadow of their inner state, and they tend to that inner state with absolute devotion. While others react to circumstances, they create them. While others wait for change, they become change. You must become deaf to the voices of doubt, blind to the evidence of lack, and immune to the appearance of delay. You must live each day as though your desire is already realized, with no concern for when or how it will materialize. The moment you surrender to the certainty of your assumption, the world moves to fulfill it. Events will shift, people will change, opportunities will appear, not by chance, but by the law that governs all things. Ignore the senses. Believe in your assumption so fully that nothing in the world can convince you otherwise. Let the seen world fade into insignificance, and let the unseen world of imagination become your reality. When you do this, you will find that the world has no choice but to reflect your inner state. And when it does, you will know that you are never at the mercy of circumstances. You are always the creator of them. To live in the end is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled with such absolute conviction that no external condition, no delay, no apparent contradiction can shake your belief. It is to so fully embody the state of your desire, realize that there is no gap between what is and what is to come. The moment you accept your desire as already accomplished, you shift into alignment with the reality in which it is true, and the world must rearrange itself to bring it into being. The error most make is in living in the expectation of their desire rather than in the fulfillment of it. To desire is to admit lack, and as long as one remains in a state of wanting, they are affirming the absence of what they seek. But when you assume the state of having, when you walk as though you already possess the thing you desire, you generate within yourself the vibration of its fulfillment. The world outside must then reflect what you have already accepted within. The secret lies in making this inner assumption so natural, so real, that it becomes your dwelling place. It is not enough to merely affirm your desire. It must become the foundation of your being. You must think from your wish fulfilled rather than think of it as something distant. If you were already the person you wish to be, how would you think? How would you feel? How would you carry yourself? Would you worry? Would you doubt? Or would you walk with the quiet confidence of one who knows their desire is already theirs? The mind, conditioned by years of living in the world of the senses, will resist. It will demand proof. It will question. It will doubt. But proof does not come first. Assumption does. The world is only a mirror reflecting the state you occupy. The longer you dwell in the assumption of your wish fulfilled, the sooner the mirror will adjust to show you that reality. You cannot wait for evidence to believe. You must believe, and the evidence will follow. This is the power of living in the end. When you accept a state as already real, it begins to solidify in the unseen. Every thought, every action, every unconscious response begins to shift in accordance with this new state. You no longer react from a place of desire, but from the certainty of possession. And when you hold firm to this assumption, refusing to waver regardless of what appears, the world must eventually conform to the inner conviction you have sustained. Many say, I will believe it when I see it. But this is the great misunderstanding. You will never see what you do not first believe. The world outside is a projection of the world within, and what you persist in assuming must externalize itself in time. If you desire wealth, do not think of a future where you might be wealthy. Step into the consciousness of wealth now. If you seek love, do not long for a relationship. Embody the feeling of already being loved. If you want success, do not look to circumstances to dictate your worth. Carry yourself as one who already possesses the success you seek. The process is not one of force, but of surrender. You do not struggle to make the world conform to your desire. You simply assume the state of already having, already being, already living the life you seek. And as you dwell in that assumption, reality must bend to match it. Circumstances will shift, opportunities will arise, and people will respond differently, not by accident, but by law. The law states that whatever you accept as true within must be expressed without. There are no exceptions. To live in the end is to remain unmoved by appearances. It is to know that what is seen is but the shadow of past assumptions, and what is felt within is the true cause of all external manifestations. You must close your eyes to the evidence of delay, the appearance of lack, and the seeming impossibility of change. You must hold steadfast to the conviction that what you have assumed is already true. And as you persist in that assumption, reality will take shape accordingly. Doubt is the only enemy. The moment you question whether your desire will manifest, you introduce a counterforce that delays its unfolding. But when you live in the end, there is no doubt, only the quiet assurance that what is felt within is more real than what is seen without. You do not check for signs. You do not ask when or how it is done. And you simply remain in the state of fulfillment. Imagine now that your wish is already fulfilled. Step into that reality fully. Let the feeling of accomplishment, of satisfaction, of gratitude wash over you. If you were already in possession of what you seek, how would you feel in this moment? Capture that feeling, live from it, and refuse to be swayed by anything less. For as you persist in living in the end, the world has no choice but to yield to the reality you have claimed as your own. The greatest challenge for most is the grip of the senses. The world outside appears so real, so solid, that it demands attention, forcing one to react to circumstances rather than create them. But what is seen is only a reflection of past thoughts, past assumptions, past beliefs. It is nothing more than a shadow of what has already been impressed upon the mind. To focus on the outer world is to live as a servant to effects, rather than as a master of cause. True mastery comes when you withdraw attention from what is and place it fully on what is becoming. The senses will argue. They will tell you that what you want does not yet exist. They will remind you of your current conditions, showing you lack where you wish for abundance, showing you loneliness where you desire love, showing you struggle where you long for ease. But if you remain bound by what your senses report, you remain chained to the very conditions you wish to escape. The secret is to look beyond appearances, to see with the eye of imagination, to trust what is unseen more than what is seen. This is the great paradox. The moment you stop reacting to what is, you begin to change it. The outer world does not dictate what is possible. The inner world does. If you can accept as true the reality of your wish fulfilled, even when there is no physical proof, you set into motion the forces that will bring it to pass. But the moment you doubt, the moment you waver, the moment you let the evidence of the senses dictate your belief, you delay the very thing you seek. You must discipline yourself to ignore that which contradicts your vision. When the world shows you lack, do not acknowledge it. See abundance in your mind's eye instead. When you are confronted with delay, do not dwell in impatience. Know that time is only an illusion, and what is real already exists within. When others doubt you, do not seek their approval. Your faith alone is the only requirement. To live from the end, to trust the unseen, is to act as though the world has already conformed to your assumption. This does not mean denying reality. It means understanding its nature. Reality is not fixed. It is fluid, shifting, changing, always reshaping itself to reflect the dominant state you hold within. What you see today is only the residue of past assumptions. If you do not like what you see, do not fight it. Change the cause. Change your inner state, and the outer must follow. It is not effort that brings about manifestation. It is certainty. The more you strive, the more you affirm separation between yourself and your desire. The moment you surrender to the knowing that it is already done, the burden is lifted. The world which once seemed rigid and unchangeable begins to soften. Paths open, opportunities arise, and events unfold in ways you could not have predicted. The how is never your concern. Only the conviction that what you seek is already yours. Doubt is the only barrier. The mind, conditioned by years of reacting to the visible, will seek reassurance. It will want signs, proof, evidence that what you believe is true. But the need for proof is itself an admission of disbelief. The one who truly trusts does not check for results, does not question when or how. They rest in the certainty that what has been accepted within must appear without. They do not waver when faced with contradiction. They remain steadfast in their knowing. The unseen is more real than the seen, for the seen is merely a projection of past convictions. To change your world, you must live as though the world you desire is already here. You must walk in the assumption that what you have imagined is fact. When you do, reality bends to conform. This is the law. It does not fail, it does not waver, it does not make exceptions. What you believe to be true will harden into fact if you persist in that belief without contradiction. Close your eyes to what is. Refuse to be a prisoner of the senses. When you hear words that contradict your vision, do not listen. When you see conditions that oppose your desire, do not accept them as final. Train yourself to look only at the unseen, to walk in the certainty of your assumption, to trust that what is felt within will soon be seen without. Hold to this truth unwaveringly. What is real is what you have claimed in your imagination. Trust in that and let the world catch up. The secret to manifestation lies in one fundamental principle. You must live in the end. You must assume with absolute certainty that your desire is already fulfilled. This is not a process of waiting, nor is it a matter of hoping. It is a shift in consciousness, a knowing beyond reason that what you have imagined is already yours. The world you experience is merely a reflection of your state of being, and if you persist in the assumption that your desire is already accomplished, the outer world must conform to that inner conviction. Most fail because they continue to see their desire as something separate from themselves, something to be attained in the future. But the future is only a reflection of the present state. If you persist in the idea that you are on the path to your desire, you will always remain on the path, never arriving. The key is to assume that you have already arrived. You must step into the feeling of the wish fulfilled and dwell in it so completely that it becomes your present reality. The mind does not distinguish between what is seen and what is felt to be true. It only knows the state in which you dwell. If you saturate yourself with the conviction that your wish is already a fact, then by law, it must be externalized. This requires discipline. The senses will tell you otherwise. They will present evidence that contradicts your assumption, reminding you of the absence of what you seek. But the moment you accept this evidence as truth, you undo the work of your inner vision. The key is to persist beyond what the senses report and to remain unwavering in your assumption. To live in the end means to no longer entertain thoughts of wanting, needing, or striving. It means to abandon any notion of lack and to embrace the reality that what you desire is already done. You must ask yourself, if it were true, how would I feel? And then you must allow yourself to feel that now, not tomorrow, not when the circumstances change, but now. The world outside is merely a reflection of your internal state, and if you can fully embody the state of having now, the world has no choice but to mirror it. To live in the end is not to act as though something is coming, it is to know that it already is. You must walk with the confidence, the certainty, and the peace of one who already possesses that which they once sought. There is no force involved in this. It is not about struggling to convince yourself or repeating words in an effort to make something happen. It is about shifting your consciousness to the reality where what you desire is already so. If you are seeking wealth, you do not hope for wealth to arrive. You step into the feeling of financial abundance now. If you are seeking love, you do not long for it, you feel love. The mind, when truly convinced, will shape reality to match its conviction. Doubt is the only enemy. The moment you entertain the idea that your desire is not yet here, you create a state of waiting, and so the experience of waiting is prolonged. You cannot serve two masters. You must either dwell in the assumption of fulfillment or in the doubt of its absence. The choice is always yours. The disciplined mind remains in the end result, unshaken by external appearances. The undisciplined mind wavers, allowing the evidence of the senses to dictate what is real. Every great achievement has been born from an unwavering conviction in the unseen. Those who change their reality do so because they refuse to accept anything other than the fulfillment of their vision. They do not concern themselves with how or when. They do not look for signs or confirmations. They simply rest in the knowing that what they have assumed within will soon be seen without. This is the great secret. If you can occupy the state of fulfillment now, the bridge of incidents will unfold in ways you could not have devised, leading you inevitably to the externalization of your assumption. When you close your eyes at night, do not drift to sleep as the person who is waiting. Drift to sleep as the person who already has. Let the feeling of fulfillment lull you into rest. Let your final thoughts before sleep be filled with the certainty that your desire is already fact. If you persist in this, it will harden into reality. Live now as though you have already received. Speak, think, and act from the conviction that what you sought has already been given to you. Do not question. Do not doubt. Do not look to the world for reassurance. The world will follow, but it begins within. Assume the feeling, embody the state, and reality will shift to reflect your assumption. This is law, and it does not fail. The key to all manifestation is persistence. It is not enough to merely entertain a wishful thought. to imagine fleetingly, or to momentarily step into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The true test of your ability to create lies in your ability to remain faithful to the assumption, even when the senses deny its reality. The world you experience is nothing more than a reflection of your dominant state of consciousness, and if you persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, it must by law solidify into fact. Most people allow their external circumstances to dictate what they believe. They waver between faith and doubt, oscillating between conviction and uncertainty, and in doing so, they never truly step into the reality they wish to experience. But reality does not shape itself according to transient thoughts. It conforms to what you steadfastly occupy in consciousness. If you persist in a state of lack, you will see lack. If you persist in a state of fulfillment, fulfillment will be your experience. The process is neither complex nor hidden, it is a natural outworking of a law that governs all creation. To persist is to remain unmoved by appearances, to refuse to be discouraged by delay, and to trust in the unseen more than in the evidence of the senses. Many give up too soon, abandoning their assumption at the first sign of contradiction. They plant the seed, but do not allow it to take root, expecting immediate results, and when they do not see their desire materialize instantly, they doubt. But the seed of assumption, once planted, requires time to manifest. It must be nurtured with faith, watered with repetition, and shielded from the weeds of doubt. The moment you dig it up to check whether it has grown, you have disrupted its natural process. The secret is to persist beyond the doubts, beyond the fears, beyond the circumstances that seem to contradict your assumption. If you assume that you are already the person you wish to be and refuse to entertain any thought to the contrary, your assumption will harden into fact. This is not wishful thinking. It is the recognition that consciousness creates reality, and the external world must conform to the dominant inner state. There is no force necessary, no effort beyond assuming and persisting in the assumption. Imagine yourself already in possession of your desire. Feel the reality of it, engage your senses, and let the conviction settle deep within you. If you can see it inwardly with clarity, if you can occupy the state fully in imagination, then it exists as surely as anything in the external world. The world outside is a shadow. The real creation happens within. And if you refuse to abandon the reality you have created in imagination, the shadow world will eventually reflect it back to you. Doubt is the great destroyer of all manifestation. The moment you question whether your desire will come to pass, you introduce uncertainty into the state of consciousness you are cultivating. You must be unwavering. If you had already received your desire, would you question its reality? Would you wonder when it will arrive? Or would you simply live from the certainty that it is already yours? That is the distinction between those who manifest effortlessly and those who struggle. The former dwell in the end with complete conviction, while the latter look to the world for signs and confirmations. The world does not give you proof first. The proof comes after the assumption has been lived in long enough to become fact. You must persist even when everything around you contradicts your assumption. If you have assumed yourself to be wealthy, but your bank account tells another story, you do not react. If you have assumed yourself to be in perfect health, but your body presents evidence to the contrary, you do not waver. The moment you entertain doubt, you step back into the old reality and reinforce what you wish to transcend. Everything you experience is a result of past assumptions that have hardened into fact. If you wish to change your life, you must be willing to hold firm to a new assumption and refuse to let go until it becomes externalized. The reason most people fail is not that they lack the ability to imagine, but that they lack the persistence to hold the assumption long enough for it to materialize. They allow their senses to dictate what is real, rather than recognizing that their senses only reflect what has already been assumed. A state of consciousness is like a seed planted in the mind. Once it is planted, it must be nurtured with repeated assumption, watered with feeling, and protected from the weeds of contradictory thoughts. If you persist in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, it must solidify into fact. This is not a possibility, it is a certainty. The only variable is your willingness to persist. When you go to sleep at night, do not replay the events of the day that align with your current reality. Replay the events that align with the reality you wish to experience. Let your final thoughts before sleep be filled with the certainty that your assumption is already true. If you persist in this night after night, without allowing the world to shake your conviction, you will see the bridge of events unfold that will lead you to your desire. It will happen so naturally that you may not even recognize that it was your assumption that brought it forth. There is no limit to what you can manifest, except the limit you place on yourself through doubt and inconsistency. If you can assume something and hold to that assumption with absolute conviction, it must become your experience. Reality is fluid, shaped entirely by the consciousness that perceives it. The question is not whether you have the power to manifest. You do. The only question is whether you will persist in your assumption until it hardens into fact. Everything you have heard, everything you have absorbed, leads to one inevitable truth. You are the operant power. There is no external force deciding your fate, no unseen hand controlling the unfolding of your life. The power to manifest, to create, to transform lies within you, in the assumptions you dare to persist in the states you faithfully occupy. Your reality is nothing but a reflection of what you have assumed to be true. If you look around and see lack, struggle, or limitation, it is not because the world is imposing these things upon you. It is because at some level you have accepted them as part of your experience. But the moment you dare to assume a new truth, the moment you persist in a new reality, everything must shift. Faith is not about hoping something will happen. It is about knowing it already has. You do not wait for evidence. You do not look to the world for confirmation. You live from the certainty that your assumption is already fact. And in doing so, you reshape your world to mirror that conviction. The senses will try to deceive you, but you must not waver. The external world will throw contradictions at you, but you must not be moved. If you persist, if you remain unwavering in your assumption, the unseen will become seen, the imagined will become tangible, and what once seemed impossible will be the reality you live. Everything you desire is already yours, the moment you assume it to be so. The only question is, will you persist until it hardens into fact?